I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Republican candidate for the 8th District Congressional seat, Harry Welty, is here tonight. He's challenging the party's endorsed candidate to advance in the August primary.
The Duluth City Council this week voted to end a ban on panhandling and sleeping in cars in the city. We'll talk to councilors about that decision.
And the Big Lake has its big day. We'll talk about Lake Superior Day events.
These stories, Bernie Sanders comes to town, and more next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. And Denny, the middle of July is a busy time around the region.
I think if you look at events calendars from all over the area, almost every town in the region has something going on this weekend, and probably right through the rest of summer.
That's right. Things are very busy. It's a packed summer and a short season.
And what a weekend to do it.
A packed show for us tonight, so
we
let's
certainly
get started.
All right. Thank you very much, Julie. A large group of candidates is on the ballot in the 8th District race for Congress here in Minnesota. They're all vying to replace Congressman Rick Nolan, who announced earlier this year he was not running for re-election. Our first guest is challenging the Republican Party endorsed candidate in the August primary. Now joining us is Harry Welty, a former Duluth School Board member and Republican candidate for Congress. Harry, thank you very much for being here tonight and welcome. You've pretty much admitted that you have an uphill battle against Pete Stauber. So the question is, why then did you decide to get into the race?
Well, I'm not one to shy away from a fight, as the people of Duluth and the Iron Range who follow WDSE and local news know. And the fights I've had over the Duluth schools pale compared to the challenges I see for America over the next few years with an erratic president who I consider to be a demagogue. And the idea of having one more lapdog in the Congress who throws his will throw all of his weight behind the president's purposes, erratic as they are, just bothers me. So I feel that the Republican Party needs to have a challenger to Pete Stauber.
Mm-hmm. So you're running as a liberal Republican?
No, I'm running as an American citizen who has had a long affiliation with the Republican Party. My grandfather, a notable man, told me when I was 12 years old that the only mistake he ever made in his life was voting for a Democrat. And I had every intention in my 20s to be a missionary for the Republican Party, and I have to say that by the 1990s, after the 11th commandment was pretty much laid to rest, that was the one that Ronald Reagan proclaimed, in which Republicans will never say anything bad about another Republican. I began becoming sort of a man without a country, and I've decided for this particular election I'm going to come back home to the Republican Party and let people see what I remember Republicans being like in the old days.
So Harry, a number of people in our audience watching the show tonight might be asking, what's the big difference between you and Pete Stauber?
Well, I always describe myself as a social liberal. So on all sorts of social issues, I stand almost exactly where Donald Trump stood before he became a candidate for the president in the Republican Party. I am a fiscal conservative. I think that the world is going to be facing a depression because of a trade war that we have known as a nation and as a world for 80, 90 years as a disastrous thing, led to the Great Depression. And I see this president who pretty much just changes his mind at will, leading us down the primrose path. So I want to challenge a man who's going to help the president help wreck the country.
Now, President Trump's steel tariffs have been fairly popular on the Iron Range. Where do you stand on that?
You know, I thought for years that free trade was good, and I've got to say that involves steel. I don't blame the Iron Rangers one bit, because there certainly have been instances, and we've seen President Bush step in to make sure that there was a level playing field with China and other nations that produce steel. But you don't sacrifice the nation's entire economy just for one industry.
So you're in favor, I think, of expanding the steel industry?
Well, I don't.
With caution?
I mean, it was the Republicans who brought us the taconite amendment way back when and saved the taconite industry, gave us a taconite industry when iron ran out. As I said, you do not destroy the entire nation's economy for one industry, and that's what the president is doing.
If there's not an expansion of mining on the Iron Range, is the Iron Range doomed?
Well, you know,
that's a big part of the 8th district.
It's going to be a different Iron Range. I mean, when I moved up to Duluth years ago, Iron Range had as many people as Duluth did, and we've seen what's happened. Industry has tried to run away from the costs of labor, and they have figured out how to get more out of the earth with far fewer people. So the Iron Range has changed a great deal. I want it to continue on, but again, we don't sacrifice the entire nation for one industry.
Mm-hmm. Have you taken a position on copper nickel mining?
I'm agnostic on that. I would like to think that we have the know-how to figure out how to keep the mining safe. But there's no question that the economy is far bigger having to do with natural resources and recreation right now than an industry. And as I told a group of people in Hibbing not long ago, with a guy like Scott Pruitt in charge of the EPA, I'm nervous about how things like copper nickel mining will be handled. He's gone now, but I haven't got an opinion about that.
Thousands of hunters live in the 8th Congressional District. Where does Harry Welty stand on gun control?
I am somebody who believes that you've always got to regulate everything. You regulate automobiles, and I think there are a lot of hunters out there who know perfectly well that the rifles that they use to bring down a deer or ducks have very little to do with the kind of armaments that have been proliferating and spreading around the country. So it just seems to me outlandishly ridiculous to prevent any regulation of firearms at all, and the line for the last 25 years is we've got plenty of laws. Well, we've also got plenty of sandy hooks too.
Mm-hmm. Illegal immigration, a hot button issue. How do you think we ought to be regulating the border?
Well, there's no question that it's been an important issue that we have punted for a long time, but I think back a long way to the first Republican presidential candidate who succeeded Abraham Lincoln. There was a know-nothing party back then that was very anti-immigrant, and that just simply was not what Abraham wanted to affiliate himself with. And I think the hostility that we are directing, our president is directing at people who don't look like Warden June Cleaver is a shame.
Time for one more quick question. Sure. Do you believe in right-to-work laws?
You know what I did today? The letter carrier came in and brought me a right-to-work letter that was certified mail, and they've contacted me 2 or 3 times, and I've chosen to ignore those because I think that the right-to-work people they've emasculated labor across the country. And I asked her if I had to accept it. She said, "No, you don't." So I said, "Send it back to the blankety blank blanks." And she said, "Okay." And she said, "I'll put refused acceptance in big letters on it." So that, I think, is the answer.
Harry, I wish we had more time. Harry Welty, Republican candidate for Congress.
Thank you much, Denny. It's been a pleasure. Julie.
Thank you. Good to see you. Panhandling on the streets of Duluth will no longer be a violation of city code, nor will sleeping in your legally parked car. Those bans were lifted by the City Council this week. Supporters of removing the bans spoke to issues of homelessness and the right to free speech when it comes to soliciting money on the street. Well, here to talk more on these issues is Barb Russ, a Duluth City Councilor who co-sponsored the panhandling ordinance change, and Joel Sipress is a Duluth City Councilor who also supported removing the bans. And welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Barb, this seems to have come up kind of from out of the blue. What brought this to the forefront for you?
Well, actually, it didn't come out of the blue. We, as well as some other councilors, have been working on a variety of issues that are related to, well, some things that make life a little bit more difficult for people who are homeless or just in poverty, but just can't seem to, get around without, for example, with sleeping in a car. There's just stories that people have talked about with both Joel and I that have come into town, and all they have, like a single mother getting away from a violent home and having children, and nowhere to sleep, nowhere to go. And so situations like that, what would you do, And I think that a lot of people think that, well, there's got to be other options. Well, yeah, we need other options, no question about it. We need more housing.
Joel, did the bans even work? I mean, we've had panhandlers for years, people sleeping in cars for years. Did the ban even work?
Well, in the case of the panhandling ban, the thing that really brought it to the council this time is that we received advice from the city attorney that there have been court cases that have determined that panhandling bans are unconstitutional. And so right now it's been deemed unenforceable.
Right to free speech.
Right, exactly.
So our local police have not been enforcing it, and so it doesn't really make sense to have a panhandling ban on the books. If we can't enforce it, it just creates confusion about what is and is not allowed. So we still have all of our other laws that require people to behave in ways that don't involve harassing people, not be a threat to public safety, but we can't really have a law in the books that we can't enforce.
If the law wasn't being enforced, why take a public stand, though, and legalize the activity officially? Is it somewhat of an invitation for people to come and panhandle?
I don't think so. I don't think people, think, oh, let's go to Duluth and panhandle. I don't. But no, I don't think we need to. We wanted to get rid of it because we did not want a situation to come up where maybe a police officer forgot that, that it is no longer a law, and they can ticket the person or whatever. But so you don't want a situation where we end up being in litigation because there's just a mistake being made. And of course, we want to do some training with law enforcement now with both of these issues. The issue with sleeping in cars too. There is concern when people are sleeping in a car, especially with children, especially in the winter. And police officers will of course check on people, make sure that they're safe and there isn't a problem. And they refer to those as welfare checks.
So it sounds like the police department has been willing to work with city officials, not just now, but for a while, in checking more on the welfare rather than arrest.
Right. We've been working closely, and people who are experiencing homelessness and their advocates have been working closely with our police for a couple of years to make sure we have policies in our police department that are supportive of people experiencing homelessness, because that is actually more effective in helping people get back on their feet, get into housing, obtaining services, and that's really more effective than criminalizing homelessness, in which then people sort of become pariahs.
What are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, we're hearing mixed things. We've received some emails and phone calls and that sort of thing, and a lot of people just simply misunderstand the issue. But I think if people would take the chance to sit down and talk to some folks about what their experiences have been when they've come into Duluth, fleeing a situation that's not good for them and their children, or just having bad luck, and that day there is nowhere to go. The shelters are full, and they need to just park the car somewhere and sleep.
Are there any limitations on how long a person can live out of their car associated with?
Yeah, we were very careful about this. The law as it was written said that you can't camp, lodge, or reside in a motor vehicle, and we removed the language that says you can't camp or lodge. We left the ban on residing in your vehicle. We have housing regulations, we have zoning rules, and there's also a law that you can't keep your car parked in one spot for more than 48 hours. We just wanted to make sure that if you're in a situation where you really had no alternative but to be in your car overnight, that you could do that without worrying about your security and your safety, being moved along by the police. Because frankly, having a ban on people sleeping in their cars doesn't really stop people from sleeping in their cars. All it really means is that you are always at risk of being moved along. And in this way, it's just essentially decriminalizing the act of being in your car asleep overnight.
Have we had cases of aggressive panhandling?
Well, there have been now and then, and I've gotten emails with regard to some stories about that. And of course, we tell people, if anybody is ever harassing you, what you need to do is call 911. Law enforcement, they want to know where this is happening in the certain spots. If it's in certain spots in the city, they want to kind of keep their eye on that. We don't want people to be afraid to go to the grocery store or, you know, that sort of thing. But people should absolutely, if anyone is harassing them, that, you know, you need to call 911.
And our businesses have been working very closely with our police department to, you know, address issues of, you know, issues that are harassment, threats to public safety. I think with regard to panhandling, it's simply just recognizing that the courts have found that people have a constitutional right to ask for money.
Sure.
So it's really unproductive to have a law in your books that says you can't do that when the courts have said you can. This way we can really focus both on maintaining, you know, expectations for proper behavior in public, but also we can really focus on working with people experiencing homelessness and help people get back on their feet, rather than continuing to have something on the books that doesn't really work.
All right, councilors, thank you so much
You're
for coming
welcome.
in and talking about it and shedding some light on these ordinances that people are talking about right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Maybe in a competitive global economy, if we want our young people to have the skills to do the new jobs, good paying jobs that are being created, maybe, just maybe, we should make public colleges and universities tuition free. And that idea, which seems so far out, that's a 1960s term for the younger people. So crazy, so unthinkable, attacked by every editorial page in America. Well, you know what? State after state is moving in that direction right now.
Lake Superior Day is officially this Sunday, July 15th, but with the lake so grand, one day is just not enough to celebrate all it has to offer. So you'll be able to find 3 full days of activities this weekend at the head of the lakes. Included this year are some special opportunities to explore and enjoy Minnesota Point. Here to tell us more is Pegg with the Park Point Community Club, and Konnie LeMay is the editor of Lake Superior Magazine. And welcome, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks
Lynn,
for inviting us.
Park Point, Minnesota Point, really embracing Lake Superior Days this year. Talk about why the community is coming forward to make this a special day.
Well, I've lived there for 25 years and I've enjoyed that, and always think about how I want everybody to be able to enjoy it the way we do that live on the point. Actually, what triggered me to think about this, along with some other people, was when the new bathrooms opened up at the Lafayette Square Community Club. The city built new bathrooms behind the community club for the beach goers, and they are beautiful. And so last June, when they opened them up, I thought, you know, there's a lot of things here on Park Point that need to be celebrated and people need to know about, because the city also renovated the Franklin entrance to the beach at the S-curve. And there's a beautiful new boardwalk and a platform there. And then we started thinking, well, there's a lot of newish things that have happened. The beach house has been renovated recently at the end of the point.
So you're inviting people to come out and check
Celebrate.
things out, special activities at all these places?
Yeah, and so then as we started thinking about it, we thought, well, it'd be a natural to have a special day on Park Point during Lake Superior days, because people are here already, and we are on Lake Superior, of course. And so I talked to Konnie, and she thought that was a good idea to do that.
So Konnie, what's the significance then of celebrating the big lake?
Well, you know, people here in Duluth get accused a lot of times of not paying attention to the lake. And it is true that
We're so accustomed to it.
that's right. It's like our sky and
Yes.
our earth. You know, it's you can't imagine the world without it. And so the nice thing about Lake Superior Day as a specific day to kind of turn to the lake and appreciate it and celebrate it. We've also, the next couple of days, today and then tomorrow, we have people who are involved in water issues and things connected to the lake down at the Marine Museum. And they'll be talking about things connected to the lake. So it's just a nice time to talk about the lake, look at the lake, celebrate the lake. The stuff at Park Point is particularly fun, of course, because like with the bike, there's a couple of guided bike tours. And I have to tell you, I think if you're going to bike in Duluth, Park Point is the place to do it. So the YMCA is donating bikes that people can use, and then we've got
Really?
some folks who are going to be taking guided tours so you can learn about the lake. The community pulled together a little brochure that tells history of Park Point, and what better place to get to the lake than down by Park Point too. So.
You know, we wanted people to understand that they can put in their kayaks and canoes at certain points along the bay side. And that's not always well known. People don't know about that, so it's indicated on the map. We've also arranged for a tour of the Coast Guard base at 1 o'clock on tomorrow. They're going to host a little walkthrough, and then we're also having these bike tours at 11 and 2 in the afternoon.
Is there a resurgence of activity on Park Point? I know years ago, Park Point was, I'm talking back in the 30s and 40s, it was just a busy place. Is there a resurgence of activity?
I think the residents would say yes, it's always been busy. But I don't know if it's a resurgence, but it's very active in the summer. And we want people to know where they can go, how they can get there, what are the best ways to protect our dunes and our beach, and how to care for it and enjoy it.
Yeah. The city has invested in Park Point as well. You don't hear about that quite as much, but there's a new boardwalk at Franklin Park and some other things down at the Park Point Recreation Center. It's just really a great place to be. I'd be remiss, by the way, with Lake Superior Day if I didn't mention that on Sunday, the actual day, at Barker's Island in Superior, there's a wonderful gathering with live music and wonderful booths and information.
Konnie, why do you think people have such a personal connection with the big lake?
You know, I hear it all the time. It's the magnetism of the lake. It's got its own spiritual pull, I think, the lake does. I'm also always amazed by people who come here from the oceans and they just can't believe it's fresh water. And, I go to the ocean and go, well, why is that salted water? Well, you can have a big body of water. There's just something about the lake that draws people and has a magnetism, pulls them to it.
All right. Konnie, LeMay, Lynn, Pegg, thank you for coming in and sharing your insights about Lake Superior.
And I hope people will come and visit us tomorrow.
I'm sure they will.
yes.
And any day.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the business news from our friends at Business North. Chippewa Capital Partners, which acquired the former SR Steel Minnesota assets near Nashwauk, has satisfied all requirements needed to reinstate its state mineral leases, Governor Mark Dayton announced on Wednesday. The DNR said Chippewa has paid contractors for previous work at the site and now has agreements in place to sell at least 4.2 million metric tons of pellets annually. But a sister company, ERP Iron in Grand Rapids, is facing growing pressure to declare bankruptcy. It paid debts owed to 4 companies last month, but several more have come forward, including BNSF Railway, which contends it is owed $12 million.
The Arrowhead ProCare Pool, a consortium that provides health insurance for many area public employees, was dissolved and its board disbanded. Made up of more than 30 entities and covering more than 900 employees, the discontinuation came as a surprise. Keewatin Mayor Bill King said the development occurred so fast that public officials could not be prepared. The ultimate financial impact is still unclear. Itasca County is covering financial shortages, but several small communities are left owing the county money. King noted that employees will continue to receive coverage through the Northeast Service Cooperative, but higher premiums and deductibles are likely.
Duluth officials on Monday celebrated completion of the first major intersection of Superior Street, which is being reconstructed over 3 years in the downtown. They gathered at the 5th Avenue West intersection, where underground utilities and pavement have been replaced. The street, which connects to the deck and Interstate Highway 35, has now reopened to traffic. The entire project will be completed in 2020. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on the show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And visit the WDSE website for the latest on our program schedule, news about your favorite PBS shows, and upcoming events here at the station. And Dennis, it looks like a sticky weekend ahead for most of us.
It's one of these weekends where you want to jump in the lake if you can. I'm going to.
All right, and a great weekend to visit Lake Superior and jump
agree.
in if you
Yes.
if you're brave enough. For Denny and the crew here at WDSE, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time.